Well, this is not a video I ever thought I would make, or ever intended to make, or ever planned to make, so, yeah, let's go. Hello, everybody. If you are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Maya, spelled with 2 A's, and an M, and also a Y. And if you're not new, welcome back. So today, I will be talking to you all about something interesting that happened to me at the end of last school year. And it wasn't like something unique to me. This actually happened to almost every freshman, sophomore, and junior at my school. So I'm just gonna read you my final English essay prompt, and then I'd like to talk about it. Introduction. After years of debate, the English department at insert my school name will be taking a close look at their current book list to consider what books should remain and which books should be replaced. Teachers want literature to foster critical thinking and improve students' ability to read and comprehend difficult text and understand the human condition. That is 1, 2, 3. That is at least 3 ands in one sentence. Anyway, in addition, teachers want students to be engaged and invested in what they read. Some teachers believe that classic novels are the way to do this, and others believe that more current and diverse novels better accomplish this goal. Prompt. After reading the following sources, develop a position on whether or not the current book list taught at insert my school name here should be altered. Then write an essay that incorporates at least 3 of the sources in all bold and underlined. Be sure to include specific evidence as well as a counter argument. You should include your own argument, etc., etc. So, why was this a weird thing? It just sounds like a normal essay prompt, right? Well, this is weird because I wrote this prompt. Yeah, for those of you who do not know this, this school year, this was my sophomore year of high school this past year, and something that I became very passionate about and am working to change, not only in my school, but also in hopefully my district and my state, is the diversity of books in English class. If you think about the novels that you read in English class, for the most part, the authors are white, the main characters are white, typically they are men, typically they are heteronormative, and typically they are Christian and kind of middle class. We rarely read about the experiences of other people or other demographics. We don't even read enough about the types of people we're surrounded with at school. I'm lucky enough to go to a school that is in the top 20% in my state for diversity, so I've had the opportunity to meet people from all different backgrounds and experiences, and I love that. I think culture is such an integral part of the human experience, and it's something I love to learn about and share with other people. Thus, I think it's important that we celebrate it in our school system. Inclusive excellence was not prevalent whatsoever in the English curriculum at my school, so I sent off this letter, I had a meeting with the assistant principal, I had my last handshake at that meeting. It was with the English department coordinator, Mrs. Manchester, and then we went into quarantine, so that kind of put a halt on it. Obviously, student health and just general learning is more important to me than a book list, but apparently, my school is starting to actually think about what I had to say. A lot of the time, young people are told that they cannot make a difference in someone's life or make a difference in their communities, but sometimes we can initiate change, and it just feels awesome that they listen to me. If you all are watching this at my school district, thank you. I know you're not, but if you are, thank you, and thank you. Merci, gracias, xie, etc. Today, I thought we would go through these sources and talk about why I really believe in diversity in books, especially in the education system. Source A is by a lovely lady named Catherine Kirsten, and it is an opinion article called Opinion: Why Students Should Read the Classics. Now, right off the bat, that title, I do not disagree with that. I think students should read the classics. I think classics are a good look into what the world was. Stephen King once said books are the most portable magic, and they most certainly are, because you can travel across the world, across cultural, social, religious, racial, ethnic, etc. boundaries, political lines. You can engage in worlds that don't exist with people you've never met, and I just think that's so powerful. So I agree with the title. Today, too few teenagers embark on the literary quests for wisdom and adventure that timeless classics offer. Pause. I recently read an article. I'll find it and link it down below because we love quantitative evidence. This article talked about how there's a preconceived notion that my generation, Gen X and millennials, that we don't read as much as earlier generations because we have access to so many new technologies, such as video games, Fortnite. Is that still a thing? No, it's Animal Crossing now, right? Animal Crossing. And that is false. We actually read, people under 50, statistically in the United States, actually read more than people over 50. Many American schools no longer teach these books, taking another giant leap away from greatness towards mediocrity. Ooh, we love a slippery slope logical fallacy. That is my favorite kind, Miss Catherine Kirsten. She's implying here that greatness can only be found in classics and that contemporary novels that maybe teachers are beginning to teach are mediocre. What? Yeah, they're awesome classics. They're classics for a reason. There's a reason that they've withstood the test of time. My eyes just went straight to Frederick Bachman. He's an incredible, more contemporary writer whose work I feel falls way more into a category of greatness than mediocrity. I look at the Hunger Games trilogy, which I honestly think at least the first book will be taught in schools in the future. I think it is a phenomenal example of a dystopian world and really the blueprint for classic YA of the 2000s era. Haruki Murakami, he is an incredible writer and one that I predict his works will be a huge part of the classics of the future. So, I disagree with you. Young people, like human beings everywhere, face vital questions in life. What does it mean to be a true friend? What should I do when principle and self-interest conflict? Where am I? How can I act in the face of fear? Fear. In struggling to answer, however, they have limited resources to draw on. They see the world through the restrictive cultural prism of their own time and place. For many teens,
actress Miley Cyrus or rapper Kanye West may be the ideal of greatness.
I'm pretty, not offended, but disappointed that this author, the only examples of people of my generation or millennials that she can think of as potential role models are Miley Cyrus and Kanye West. Sure, they're incredibly talented. I don't believe in the term self-made, but they really made a place for themselves in the world within the society and in which they function. And they're creatives, so that's pretty cool. That being said, that is a really monochromatic look of potential role models of this generation. I think of Greta Thunberg, the environmental activist around my age. I believe she's 17? Greta Thunberg. Anyway, Greta Thunberg, fantastic role model. She's someone I think is going to inspire so many in my generation to actively combat climate change, which is one of the biggest problems we face. She is from Stockholm, Sweden, and she is 17. I was right. We've got Malala Yousafzai. We've got Emma Watson. We've got so many examples of role models who fit the more conventional definition of a role model, someone to inspire true greatness and social change and the bettering of our world. We have so many in my generation and in the millennial generation. So that feels pretty much like not accurate, Miss Kirsten. Okay, source B, mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors, perspectives, choosing and using books for the classroom. So this article, if I remember correctly, actually agrees with my opinion. All right, this one I really, really love. This is a quote from Nancy Larick's Landmark article, which is called The All-White World of Children's Books. So here is a quote from that piece. Across the country, 6,340,000 non-white children are learning to read and to understand the American way of life in books which either omit them entirely or scarcely mention them. But this is really damaging to kids who are non-white, who are not part of the majority, because they do not see themselves in books. They are not told that their way of life is valid. They are not given a character through which to experience an event to whom they can relate. I was actually talking to my sister about this, and the first novel she told me she'd ever read with an Asian main character who's female was Cinder by Marissa Meyer. She read that when she was 12 years old. And I don't believe I can remember a time in my life where I haven't read or been told stories about characters that were white and female. Like, I just think it's terribly sad that she didn't get a window into a world with which she can better relate and learn to understand and accept her identity. This also hurts white children, and here is why. Reading, in my opinion, is the ultimate teacher of empathy. You are pretty much thrust inside the head, the mind, and the heart of a character. And this character could look like you, they could look nothing like you, they could be human, they could be non-human. Really, the possibilities are endless. And that's what's so incredible. When you're thrust inside the mind of the same demographic over and over and over again, is your empathy for people who are different from you going to develop?
No.
According to the article, I love this quote, so here we go. They need books that will help them understand the multicultural nature of the world they live in, and their place as a member of just one group, as well as their connection to all other humans. Yes, snaps to that, bishops. Source C, and this is by a person named Sydney Bommersbach. And this article is called Reading Classic Novels is Necessary in High School. Again, I agree. I think we should have a mix of classics and contemporaries. We cannot ignore one group and focus entirely on another without consequences. Whether a reader is 16 or 76, reading a piece for the first time or the fifth time, classic pieces of literature appeal to all types and groups of people. Sure, they can appeal to all types of people. Do they? Have you asked every single person this? There's so many logical fallacies in these sources, and we need to point them out specifically if we are going to make a valid argument, which I think we need to do. This is something that needs to change, and I will continue to fight for it as long as necessary. Not only are classic pieces entertaining sometimes, but they also exercise the brain. Totally true, totally true. I find classics more challenging to read than contemporaries because language has morphed throughout the years. The language of Jane Eyre isn't the language I use day to day. Classics require more concentration and higher thinking level. Sure, totally agree with that. Yep, A+. In contrast to the classics, many popular novels published today don't offer as much intellectual value. Okay. Do you define it based on like brain scans showing the amount of blood flow to the brain and how physically challenging it is to dissect and understand a contemporary? Or do you mean intellectual in terms of expanding your horizons, connecting with worlds and characters and places and cultures that you don't know anything about? Because to me, it's more important that people are challenged intellectually in their biases and in their preconceived notions of other people. Those need to be challenged. We need to form empathy in the world we live in. There's nothing more crucial. Okay, an English teacher named Brett Mead has a quote in this article, and it is as follows. "It is just important to understand," Mead said, "that reading works at the 6th to 8th grade reading level, which many popular novels today are, does not prepare students for the level of comprehension, processing, and volume that they will face in college." Again, true in many cases, untrue in others. Oh, one more thing. What is important in the future is that the classics don't become replaced by different inferior pieces.
I'm sorry.
I don't think anyone's saying that we should replace curriculum with inferior books. I'm saying we should replace them with different books that offer more perspective. Not replace them entirely. We need to keep some classics, but we do not need all of the white men's voices all the time, you know? Zachary Matson wrote an article called Student Choice Emphasized in High School English Curriculum Rewrite. Schenectady High School. Oh my gosh. Schenectady High School, that is the best name ever. Schenectady High School 10th grade English teachers are trying something new this year. This is 2018. Letting the students pick what they read. I think it's important that kids are taught to love reading before they're taught that they need to understand tricky, compound, complex sentences and gerunds. You know what I mean? Oh, okay. So the teacher writes a curated list of 10 contemporary books that students can pick from. So they're given independence over what they choose within boundaries. I think that's awesome. So this is the quote from Oriana Miles, which is a beautiful name, who is a 10th grade English teacher at Schenectady High School. Miles says, so she went to Schenectady schools, and she says that for many years she didn't encounter nuanced black characters in the stories she read for school. She ticked off novels like Of Mice and Men, Grapes of Wrath, To Kill a Mockingbird, and others. That turned her off from literature, she said, until she started reading a wider variety of texts in college. It's not that classics don't have a place, Messler said, but the first goal for educators should be to help students find a love of reading. A love of Shakespeare can come later. This source is specific statistics from my school that I thought I'd share because we didn't know this until this year. Nobody ever talked about this. Gender of authors required in books in my school across grade levels. So male authors, 76%, female authors, 24%. Cultural racial background of authors required in books across grade levels. 76% are white, 24% are African American, and then we've got Hispanic, Asian, and other at 0%. The world is, I'm so glad that we have at least a tiny 24% of diversity in our books, but the world is not split into Caucasian people and African American people. I live in a community that's very heavily populated by Vietnamese people and just Asian people in general. Why are we not reading books that reflect our community? I also live in a heavily Hispanic populated place, and why are 0% of the authors in required? Why? 81% of the books we read were published pre-1970, and 19% were published after 1970. This one's tricky. So in my essay, I talked about what was happening in 1960 to 1970 because I wanted to give context of what the world was like then versus what it is now. So to give you some, I believe it was 1963. Let's look it up again. Yep, in 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested in Birmingham, Alabama for protesting the treatment of African Americans in that community. Roe v. Wade was passed, and I believe it was 1971? Date argued 1971, but date decided 1973. Roe v. Wade was just going to court pre-1970. So, obviously our world is still struggling with issues such as racism and sexism, but we need to explore those ideas, in my opinion, in a more informed and modern context. Intersectionality has been a big topic for a long time, specifically in the feminist movement, and I think it's so important and something that was not super duper discussed pre-1970. I feel like we need a more equal balance here to reflect the world we're living in today. This is an essay that my sister, who's a freshman, myself as a sophomore, and many of my friends as juniors had to write as their end of the year synthesis essay. So I'm super happy that it looks like we're paving a way forward and hopefully making change. This is something that is integral. There's a movement called We Need More Diverse Books. I will link a video about it down below. John Green is a big part of that movement, as well as many other authors, and I think it is so freaking crucial. The world, I don't really need to tell you the state of the world. Obviously, Gen X is going to be inheriting a world that's been devastated by COVID-19, economically and socially. We're going to be battling climate change at the same time. We're still dealing very much so with issues like racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, etc. We're going to have to clean up a lot of the mess. And if we really want to set up our young people for success in this world, I believe the most crucial thing to teach them is empathy. If we can empathize with other people, respect their opinions, and value their ideas, we can make change in waves by communicating and working together. In the long term, this affects us not only as intellectuals and scholars, but also in our competency as human beings, as good people with good hearts, good intentions, and paving a better world. Thank you so much for tuning in today, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. So I will see you all very soon, and I hope you have a wonderful last few days of May. Bye-bye.